In order to understand the nature of the universe and all these fundamental questions, we must expand the scope and scale of consciousness.
And welcome everybody to this special edition video about the SpaceX IPO, set to start trading on the NASDAQ this Friday, the 12th of June, 2026, where all of us can buy shares in what I think is the most exciting company ever created, and is no doubt the number one IPO, that's initial public offer, of our lifetimes. This is a huge deal for the stock market, and whether you like Elon Musk or not, this is simply too big to ignore. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what SpaceX does, how they make money, what their future ambitions are, all details about the IPO, and I'm even going to give you my forecast of what I think the price action we could see this Friday, as I do think it will be absolutely insane. And I'll also reveal to you whether I'm planning on buying shares in SpaceX this Friday or not, and what my trading plan is going forward. And so if you're considering buying shares in SpaceX this Friday, or you're not, this video may change your mind, so be sure to watch it to the end, and you'll have a much better understanding of SpaceX and what's on offer. I've also enabled comments on this video, so you're welcome to share your opinion on SpaceX, the IPO, and the content in this video, and I'll do my best to reply to as many comments as possible. So let's dive right in. What is SpaceX? For many people, they just know it as a rocket company run by Elon Musk that's going to start trading on the stock market this Friday. So it was actually founded by Elon Musk in 2002. He's been running this company for almost 25 years, and this has been Elon's dream since he was a little boy, looking up at the stars at night. And this is his biggest ambition, more than electric cars with Tesla, and more than all his other companies. He has stated his life's goal is to expand the light of consciousness and make humanity a multi-planetary species, and SpaceX is his vehicle to do that. And so he has pioneered and revolutionized modern rockets, dramatically lowering their cost by making them reusable, landing them back down on Earth. Prior to SpaceX, the space industry was dominated by governments, defense contractors, and expensive, expendable rockets. And so they had a lot of failures at first. Their first 3 Falcon 1 launches failed. Company was running low on money. They almost ran out of money before they had their first successful launch in 2008, helping to establish SpaceX as a viable launch company and contributed to securing major NASA work. And so Falcon 9 launched in 2010, demonstrating they could launch and return to Earth and land vertically. And then 2019 was a key moment as well, creating Starlink, global internet, and apart from investor capital's really been the cash flow that's really been driving them to date, as that segment of their business is cash flow positive. Now, what really underpins SpaceX is their foundation, is their huge moat, and that's their rocket business. Everything is built on top of that. And this is where they absolutely dominate. They have launched more things into space than the rest of the world combined. In fact, they've transported more than 80% of the world's mass into orbit since 2023. Falcon 9's completed 620 flights, 99% success rate. Falcon Heavy, 11 flights with 100% success rate, and Starship is still in the testing and development phase. And as I said, the key difference with SpaceX is reusable rockets, as traditional rockets always discarded extremely expensive hardware. And that's a big reason why NASA, only up until recently for the prior 40 years, has kind of dialed down their space exploration, simply because it's been so expensive. But the efficiencies created by Elon Musk have completely changed the game for space exploration, and it's their Starship rocket That is the future, the technology that could change everything. The largest and most powerful launch system SpaceX has ever developed, designed so both the booster and the spacecraft will be rapidly reusable, with a target payload of approximately 100 metric tons, versus the Falcon, which was around 23 tons. And so you could think of Starship as being the freight train into space. SpaceX pretty much owns the only viable bridge into space. They are the Google of space. Still very much early days on Starship, but it's this rocket that's going to take us to Mars and beyond, truly make humanity a multi-planetary species, as it will dramatically lower the cost per ton to transport people and goods into space and beyond. And helping to finance these huge ambitions, to date, has been Starlink. SpaceX has already created its own space business. It's got almost 10,000 satellites, providing high-speed, low-latency internet through a constellation of low Earth orbit satellites to all corners of the Earth. It's been great for people in rural areas, the maritime industry, aviation. More and more airlines are hooking up with Starlink, people who like to travel. And so far, they've got a little over 10 million active subscribers, coverage in 164 countries. And this business is cash flow positive, helping to fund their two other segments, space and their newest segment, AI. Last year, Starlink did about $11.5 billion in revenue, growing 50% year over year. And that represents about 61% of the total company's revenue. And so I think just Starlink alone could eventually become a multi-trillion-dollar business, being the world's #1 internet provider. But more importantly, financing SpaceX's big ambitions and what I think in the medium term will be the biggest cash cow, and that's their AI infrastructure business, artificial intelligence. SpaceX just recently merged with xAI, the owner of Grok and the social media network X, formerly known as Twitter, which has over 500 million users and over 117 million users of Grok. That's xAI's chatbot, similar to ChatGPT, which is currently number 4 in terms of usage. After ChatGPT, Gemini from Google, and Claude from Anthropic, Grok has also been growing very quickly the last year or two. And xAI already generates over $3 billion in revenue from advertising, paid subscriptions, and recently partnering with Alphabet, Google, and Anthropic to lease them compute at their massive Colossus data centers. But more importantly, I think those big AI companies are securing a seat at the table for the future of where AI compute's going to come from, and that's orbital data centers. Because running data centers on Earth faces a lot of headwinds, a lot of hurdles. It's already very controversial, driving up the price of electricity, especially where the data centers are located. They've got constraints in power, grid connections, cooling, land, government permits. Whereas running data centers in space, you get the sun 24/7, 365, radioactive cooling. And like I said, I think that's the medium term for SpaceX. Here in the short term, we've got Starlink generating revenue. Then in the next 3 to 7 years, I think we're going to see data centers in space, and that is going to give SpaceX and xAI a huge material advantage, not only for their own AI model Grok, but to also kind of be the landlord for compute for other big companies like Google and Anthropic, who runs Claude, but maybe not OpenAI. And even though they had the first mover advantage with ChatGPT, I think they could end up turning out to be the Yahoo of the AI game. Because OpenAI's leader, Sam Altman and Elon Musk, do not see eye to eye. So I don't see them partnering anytime soon. But of course, this is still very early days. They are losing money in their AI division because they're investing so heavily. And hence the reason for this IPO and raising $75 billion to help fund these big future ambitions, which require a lot of cash. Then beyond the future of AI infrastructure, long term, there's things like traveling to Mars, space tourism, asteroid mining, and many more things. But of course, that is looking very far out, 7 years plus. So there's really 3 stages for SpaceX as I see it. Here in the short term, we've already got Starlink providing high-speed internet, generating cash flow. Next is AI data centers, which I do think we'll see the start of in the next couple of years. Then beyond that, traveling to Mars and beyond. And so how does SpaceX make money? Well, in their space division where it all started, they do commercial launches, government and defense launches, NASA contracts, Dragon missions, deep space payloads. Their second division, connectivity, Starlink, selling to government, commercial, residential, aviation, maritime, mobile network partnerships, hardware sales, enterprise subscriptions. And then their latest and newest division, AI, through their social media network X, advertising, premium subscriptions to Grok, enterprise and data licensing, and just recently renting out compute to some of the largest, fastest growing AI companies in the world. Future revenue streams include global direct-to-mobile voice and data, Starlink broadband, lunar transportation and infrastructure, orbital AI compute, which I'm most excited about over the coming years. And Elon has ambitions to what I think is own the entire AI supply chain. We've seen that with him recently announcing the Project Terafab, the world's largest semiconductor manufacturing facility by far, a project shared between all his companies, and why I think it's inevitable SpaceX is going to merge with Tesla, but a bit more on that later on. And then of course, long term, they're going to look to go beyond low orbit, the moon, and to Mars. Okay, so that's a bit about SpaceX the business as it currently stands. Now, onto some details about the initial public offer. That is the company going from private to public, selling shares to the public, allowing anybody with a brokerage account to own a slice of this company. So it's going to start trading this Friday on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol SPCX. It's a bit over 555 million shares being offered. That's about 5% of all shares outstanding. So that's the float, what's actually going to be traded on the stock market, and that determines the entire valuation of the company. And that's part of the reason why I think there could be some crazy price action the first day and couple of weeks. Because of the small float, concentrated holdings, Elon Musk owns 42% of all shares outstanding. I don't think he's going to be selling any. And other insiders, private investors and funds that have invested so far will be in a lockout period with staggered release over the coming months. Then in a couple of weeks, it's going to be included in the NASDAQ 100, but more on that later as well. The IPO price is $135. I think it's highly likely we're going to gap up. Again, I'll give you my estimate on where I think it's going to open on Friday. And so they're raising $75 billion, which is by far a record. We've never seen an IPO of this size ever. And that's going to give them massive ammo on their balance sheet to achieve big things, go for their goals, expand AI compute infrastructure, improve their launch technology, develop and manufacture new launch vehicles, increase the size and capacity of satellite constellations, expand their Colossus data centers, buy more GPUs. And I really think it's Elon's ambitions to put data centers in space as to why he's gone public now and merged with XAI. That's given us clues of his likely path. Now he's doing this monster raise to give him the ammo, the risk capital to do it. And that's why this IPO matters a lot. It's going to accelerate SpaceX. Look at what they've already achieved. Pioneering reusable rockets, the most wide coverage internet service in the world. A seat at the table in AI, not just with one of the top 4 chatbots, but more and more so AI infrastructure. Management thinks AI alone could unlock $26.5 trillion in opportunity. SpaceX isn't just about launching rockets. This is internet and AI infrastructure. I think this is the future of internet and AI infrastructure. Now onto the highly controversial topic of valuation. Even at $135, which I don't think it's going to open at on Friday. I think it's going to open higher than that. But even at $135, based on traditional valuation metrics, as a multiple of their sales is 94 times, without a doubt, that is crazy high. Nobody's arguing that. That implies a market cap of $1.75 trillion, which would put it into the top 10 most valued companies right away. With revenue of only $18.7 billion last year, not nothing, but well below Alphabet, Nvidia, Microsoft, and others that are also in the $1 trillion club. But you have to remember here, this company is unlike any other. You can't compare it to anything else. Those of us that believe in it are buying a slice of the future, not the past. We're looking forward, not in the rearview mirror, at the past 12 months cash flows, because if you do, you simply couldn't justify this valuation. As I said, SpaceX pretty much owns the only viable bridge into space, arguably the most important industry of the future and where our AI and internet infrastructure is going to come from, let alone space travel. Giving them the biggest advantage, along with owning the base layer every other big company is going to have to build on top of. They're going to be the landlord of space and AI compute. And I can see SpaceX easily being a $10 trillion plus company within 10 years from now, by 2036. But for sure, it's not going to be a straight ride up. And again, more on that later. I'm going to show you some stats of how IPOs often trade the first couple of years. But for those of us that are actually going to buy some shares in SpaceX, be a part owner of what I think is the most exciting company ever created. What are we actually buying? Well, you get a piece of the most dominant space launch company in the world by far. I cannot make that clear enough. Their number 2 and number 3 competitors are so far behind, they're barely worth a mention. Their Starlink business can provide internet coverage to 3.5 billion people. That's 3,500 million people. Currently, they've got 10 million. That's a huge total addressable market, TAM. XAI, not just their chatbot, not just their social media network, but eventually giving them a huge compute advantage for themselves and to rent to others. This company is the future, but if it's so obvious, why doesn't everyone buy? And will it just be an easy moneymaker again? I'm going to get into that later on, and why I think it will shake out most investors before they realize their dreams. But just touching a little on their competitors, number 2, and like I said, not even close, is Blue Origin, created by Jeff Bezos, the guy who created Amazon. Unfortunately, they just blew up their only launch pad, causing them a lot of trouble. And whilst no one wishes that, it has put them even further back to even being close to SpaceX. Next, you've got Rocket Lab, being started in New Zealand. They're a proven small launch operator. You could kind of think of them as a mini SpaceX, but again, just a fraction of the size and capability of what SpaceX. Medium long term, I'd say their real competitor is China, quickly trying to catch up to America in their AI capability and of course space as well. Bit of a space race, who can establish a moon base first. With NASA going to do another Artemis mission next year, looking to potentially start a moon base in 2028, definitely by 2030, and SpaceX will play a big role in that. China's going to look to quickly catch up, but I think for at least the foreseeable future, several years or longer, they will still remain a distant second. Where SpaceX does lag is in chatbots, still being led by GPT, Gemini, and Claude from Anthropic. But again, that could all change in the coming years once they've got the compute advantage. Because remember, AI is energy turned into intelligence. And when SpaceX has the energy advantage, they'll have the AI advantage. Now, this is where it gets exciting. Could SpaceX merge with Tesla and Elon's other companies? I think highly likely so. Maybe not this year, but I think potentially next year. And we've already seen him make moves with that by combining his XAI company and SpaceX together. And it would make a lot of sense to fold Tesla in with SpaceX as well. A lot of synergies to be had there. One integrated company could combine energy, vehicles, robotics, AI, communications, and space transportation. And a lot of synergies in capital markets as well. Tesla's cash flow positive would solidify their balance sheet, credit rating, easily tap the debt and equity markets. And after a merger, like I've been saying for several years, Tesla with SpaceX will be the largest company on Earth. And as a long-term Tesla shareholder myself, this is something I'm very much in favor of. And once it happens, you could kind of think of it as an Elon Musk ETF. Remember, buying SpaceX is just as much a bet on the jockey as it is the horse. In fact, I would say it's more so a bet on Elon Musk than his actual businesses and products, which of course will outlive him, but he's dedicating his life, works harder than any other entrepreneur to make his dreams a reality. I consider him the #1 entrepreneur to have ever lived. And us regular retail investors get an opportunity to ride along with him. But of course, there's many haters, and more on that later. But I do think a tie-up with all his companies, or Tesla at least, is inevitable and makes a lot of sense. Just maybe not this year. But they've already got collaborations happening with Terafab, planning to manufacture chips at scale, and MacroHeart as well, Agentic AI, taking a swipe at Microsoft, the world's largest software company. This IPO is so big, the exchanges and index owners have changed their rules to fast-track SpaceX into the NASDAQ 100 index, the second most popular index in the world after the S&P 500. Standard & Poor's haven't changed their rules just yet. They require a company to be cash flow positive a year of trading, but that could change. But the NASDAQ 100 has opened the door for SpaceX to be included in their flagship index in 15 days' time. And so basically everybody who owns the NASDAQ 100 is going to be owning SpaceX. They're going to have about 0.75% of the index in SpaceX. And this is likely going to add to a huge amount of volatility in the first couple of weeks. And medium long term creates a good amount of passive buying from that huge index and the hundreds of billions of dollars indexed to it around the world. That's going to help SpaceX retain a premium valuation, which again gives them a material advantage in capital markets, allowing them to trade at a good valuation, potentially do more secondary offers, further strengthening their balance sheet. And so with forced index buying, the huge amount of hype around this, we've never seen an IPO like it. The low float, it's why I think we're going to see some insane price action come this Friday that I believe is already affecting the wider stock market. We've seen a sharp pullback in AI-related and growth stocks and sectors lately. I believe fund managers and traders, myself included, have been selling down some positions, raising capital, getting ready to make a new allocation to SpaceX in our portfolios. Now that may subside this Friday, and it will be interesting to see how the rest of the space-related and AI-related stocks trade on Friday and next week. But for the stock market as a whole, it's adding supply, more shares on the market, kind of diluting the whole market somewhat. 75 billion, not a huge amount relative to the entire stock market, but still nothing to ignore either. But I think we're going to see multiples of that in trading volumes. So there could be a lot of buying pressure coming into this stock. We may even see some trading halts. I'm sure the exchanges are stress testing their servers for what is no doubt going to be a record trading day of volume, and I'll give you my estimate of the dollar amount I think we could see on Friday as well. But before that, let me quickly give you my 5 biggest reasons to be bullish on SpaceX, and I'm talking medium long term. No doubt we're going to see a crazy amount of volatility in the first few days and weeks, but long term, my key takeaways are those that buy shares in SpaceX are really riding with the world's #1 entrepreneur, Elon Musk, the #1 creator of efficiency. Nobody dreams bigger than him. Nobody works harder than him. And what he's created with SpaceX over the past 25 years is an unmatched launch advantage. Reusable rockets, dramatically lowering their cost by 90% of what it traditionally costs to launch a rocket. In my opinion, he owns the only viable bridge into space. Starship will be the freight train into space. Starlink, their internet business, has helped to finance that. That is still early days, has plenty of potential. Then getting into AI data centers in space. And again, Elon Musk has a track record, no doubt, yes, setting the bar high. Most CEOs like to underpromise and overdeliver. That's what makes them look good. Elon's different, and this does get him a lot of criticism. He sets the bar really high for his partners and engineers, likes to promise big, tells all his employees if they're not willing to give 150%, they're at the wrong company. And so a few times he has underdelivered on his promises. But that's what you want to see. If someone's hitting all their targets, they're not trying hard enough. And so again, we're betting on the jockey, not just the horse. And space is the future of AI compute, yet alone all the other things. Space launches, their social network, internet service, space tourism, Mars, energy, the list goes on. But for sure, this is not without risk. I think this is going to be a highly volatile stock, probably with a beta of 2 or 3 for a good time. That means SpaceX is likely to be 2 or 3 times as volatile as the general stock market, especially if we see a bear market in tech stocks over the next couple of years. The valuation for sure is as rich as you get, but valuation is in the eye of the beholder. Against the past 12 months cash flows for sure, 94 times sales is crazy, but for long-term investors, when you look out 10, 15, 20 years, you look at their potential. It might sound crazy, but 1.75 trillion may be looked at as cheap. I remember back in 2004 when Google came onto the stock market, came on with a valuation of 32 billion or somewhere around there, which doesn't sound like much nowadays, but 22 years ago, that was huge for a new internet company. And I too, being a new and young investor, got caught up in that narrative. Even though I truly believed in Google, the valuation held me back, and that's my second biggest regret in my investing career. After not buying and holding Tesla ever since I've been following Elon Musk since 2010, I was in and out of Tesla for many years before finally making it a permanent holding in my portfolio. Google, if I could go back in time, I would just buy and hold it, because even though it was largely deemed super expensive when it launched in 2004, the valuation is now over 4 trillion. It's gone up 100x in that time, and that's because it's a dominant high quality company, and I believe SpaceX has very similar qualities, although it's arguably more richly valued now than Google was in 2004. So this is not going to be a linear ride. This is going to be full of risks. They may have a rocket blow up. Elon Musk is bound to get in more controversy. He's an autistic genius. He does weird things every now and then. He has an army of haters trying to bring him down. What he's doing is literally rocket science. It's not so easy. There could be a change in government that comes down on him. There could be a nasty bear market that puts pressure on their ability to raise more capital. The list goes on. It's not going to be a straight ride up. But now onto my price action forecast for what we could see this Friday. Keep in mind, this is purely my speculation. I could be dramatically wrong, but what I think could happen is based on historical precedent and also a bit of my gut feel and vibes. So the IPO price for which the company sold shares to the public was $135. I think the stock could gap up on Friday to start trading around 188. That would be about a 40% premium, which is not unheard of for a super hyped up IPO. And like I said, because many of the insiders are locked up, there will be some selling from them. The hedge funds and private equity, venture capital and so on will crystallize some of their gains. I think company insiders, which own the majority of the stock, Elon and such, they're not going to be rushing out and dumping stock into the market. There's not enough demand to do that. They would overwhelm it. But those that have been allocated shares can't sell right away as well. They'll have to wait till next week. You got the NASDAQ inclusion in 2 weeks. 5% of all outstanding shares are on the market. Super low relative float. All the hype, people been waiting years to get into this. Day traders, bots. We could see a crazy run up towards lunchtime to $250 a share, maybe a little bit above. Then I think all those day traders and bots will take profits. Some shares may be available to borrow short. Insiders and others may short to hedge their positions through other accounts, even if they can't sell their underlying position. Then we could swing back down, crazy volatility, before I think the dip will get bought and we may close around $185 a share above $2.3 trillion market cap at close, maybe giving us a candle like this. And I think we'll also set a record for the highest traded volume in one day for one stock at $250 billion. Wouldn't surprise me if we went over that as well to 300, even 350 billion. And that would translate to about 1.5 billion shares traded around the $185 range. Now, of course, this is just a bit of fun. Make sure you come back to this channel, click capital on Friday night or this weekend if you got a chance, and I'll give you a rundown of how SpaceX traded on the first day and whether my forecast was right, somewhat right, or totally wrong. Let's see what happens. It is going to be a monster of a day, let me tell you that. And again, you're welcome to drop your comment below this video. What do you think is going to happen this Friday? Where do you think the stock will close? Do you think we're going to get a massive gap up on the IPO price? Do you think we could see $200 a share? I'm interested to hear your opinion, and I will read them all. And like I said, I'll do my best to reply to as many as possible. Now, before we get into whether I'm going to be buying some shares this Friday and what my investing plan is for SpaceX going forward, let me just show you a few stats of what past IPOs have done in the States going forward, just looking at the largest 10 initial public offerings by size and their 1 year forward returns from the IPO date percentage-wise. Not so good. The average 1 year forward return on the 10 largest IPOs in America has been negative 27%. And some of the more volatile tech-related ones like Rivian, AT&T, and Meta, and Alibaba, around 30% or more. And just looking at this interesting chart here of IPO returns post-IPO relative to the indices from 2010 through 2020. So in modern times, grouped in deciles of 3-year post-IPO returns, you can see an outlier there. The top 10% performing stocks did quite well, average return of 300% over 3 years. But what we do see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 70% of stocks that came onto the market between 2010 2020 were actually lower 3 years later, with 20% doing a bit better than the market. And that's quite often a pattern you see with IPOs. There's a lot of hype, the stock gaps up on IPO, can even run for another few weeks. Then there's quite often a dump. Insiders get their shares unlocked, the hype fades, the market moves on to something else, people start seeing losses, more and more selling, the media piles on, fear sets in, the stock tanks, then it can often bottom out and then come back. We've seen that quite often, even looking at Meta, Amazon, some of the biggest IPOs, most of them trade underneath the IPO price a year or two later before bottoming out. And that can be a great opportunity. And that brings me to my investing plan for SpaceX. Again, based on my view of Elon Musk, SpaceX, the future, I want to be part of it, but also taking into account what we can often see with IPOs, the price action, not just the first few weeks, but the first couple of years. I do plan on initiating a modest position this Friday. I think the first couple of weeks, especially going into NASDAQ inclusion, are going to be crazy. So I'm only going to add to my position if the price meaningfully dips below my first buy price. Then going forward, I'm going to be buying dips. As many of you know, that's how I approach my long-term investing. I've done that with Tesla for years. I've done that with Alphabet, Google. I've shared with you here on the channel when I've done so. The last couple of years, that's worked out really good because I do think SpaceX is going to be one of the greatest companies, not only on Earth, but sounds funny to say, but the universe. But that doesn't mean the stock is going to be easy to own. It would not surprise me for the stock to reach $200 this Friday, and sometime in the next 12 months, we go below 100, especially if we see a bear market in the NASDAQ. In fact, a 90% drawdown. If it traded up to 250 in the next few weeks and got down to $25 at some point in the next couple of years, that would not surprise me. And that's back to what I was saying before. If this stock and company and Elon's so great, why don't we just all buy it, sit back and laugh all the way to the bank over the coming 5-10 years? Well, it's not going to be easy. I believe there will be a massive drawdown at some point in the next year or 2 or 3. I'd be surprised if we didn't get a 60, 70, 80% or more drawdown. That would surprise me more. And that is what will shake out most investors as they're price driven. The media will pile onto it. There'll be calls for bankruptcy. They may have some legitimate issues with their rockets. Capital markets could dry up. There could be a change of US government admin. There will be legitimate reasons for fear and issues. It's not going to be a smooth ride. Rocket science ain't easy. But that's when I plan on increasing my position because Elon Musk not only owns 42% of the company, he owns over 80% of the voting shares. And again, that's controversial, but as an investor, that's what I want to see. He can't get kicked out of the company. He will be running it until his last breath. This is his life's dream, and I want to be there with him the whole way. Now, again, a lot of people will call me an Elon fanboy, as they have done for years. That's totally fine. I think they're on the wrong side of history. I think 20, 30 years, a lot of us get into our older years, may look back and realize they're on the wrong side of history. They shouldn't have been a hater. They should have been a part of this, which I think is the coolest company on earth. I want to be a part of it. And I understand many, and I'll probably get comments on this today, that us investors are being used as exit liquidity, getting dumped on, etc., which can be justified a little bit actually. No doubt we're the last ones in. Private ventures and all this stuff have got shares early. They will be crystallizing some gains, but all I care about is Elon Musk. I don't see him dumping any shares anytime soon. And you go back to Amazon, Google, all these other IPOs, they came on the market with huge valuations, a lot of hate, a lot of fear, and sure, they had volatility the first year or two, but now they're up 100x or more. So no doubt, SpaceX valuation based on current cash flows isn't cheap at all. Nobody's saying that. But looking out 5, 10, even 25 years, I don't see a more important company than SpaceX. And that's why I want to be a part of it. It's a bet on Elon Musk, the world's #1 entrepreneur, who pioneered reusable rockets. He's been running this company for 25 years. This is the bridge to space. Starship is the future transportation method into space and beyond. Huge potential for orbital AI data centers, giving them a massive energy compute advantage, similar to what Tesla's done with FSD and their supercharger network. And just like we've seen with Apple, having the hardware advantage is key. So I think it's inevitable SpaceX, even if they don't merge with Tesla, will become the world's biggest company. I think we've yet to see the best from Elon. They can get into more divisions. He's not going to stop. And you could think of SpaceX as an infrastructure company connecting not just all remote corners of the world, but increasingly an AI play, and perhaps more importantly, a company opening access to an entirely new frontier. Because remember, the most important companies in history didn't simply dominate industries. They expanded the boundaries of what was economically possible. And so I think SpaceX will define the future of communication, defense, artificial intelligence, and humanity's expansion beyond Earth. Try and find another company you can say that about. You won't. There's nothing like it. And just like we've seen with Tesla, SpaceX is always going to have a premium valuation, and that is a material advantage in the capital markets that compounds onto itself. And to be honest, I don't really care what the stock price does. I just want to be a part of this long term, and the more it goes down, the more I'm going to buy. That pretty much sums up my presentation on SpaceX. Again, this is all my opinion. It's not financial advice. Please do your own research. And again, you're welcome to share your opinion in the comments below this video. Let me know if you plan on buying SpaceX this Friday. What do you think of this company and IPO? And if you did find any value in this video, I would appreciate a like and subscribe to this channel. Click capital if you haven't already. And make sure to come back after close on Friday night or this weekend, and I'll give you a full rundown of how the first day's trading went, whether my price action forecast was right or wrong, and a summary of the market in general as well. So thanks very much for tuning in. I appreciate you staying to the end, and I'll see you back here this weekend for what no doubt is going to be a record-breaking day of trading in SpaceX shares. Thanks very much.